tonight's episode, and we'll have some future episodes. They're going to be to support Trips for Kids Marin. They're a great organization. They get kids on bikes. Their goal is to provide transformative cycling experiences for underserved youth. They're doing a lot of great stuff. If you have a couple bucks, you can give them. Definitely recommend doing so because they're doing a lot for kids out here that otherwise wouldn't be able to get on a bike and get out and hit the trails. They take them out for trips. They actually have them. They have an earn a bike program where they let them basically the more that they participate, they can actually earn themselves a bike. Really cool program. If you haven't heard of them, definitely check them out. But back to tonight's episode, we're very excited to have the North Face on here for our kickoff episode of our Outside In series. And so tonight we have Tim Beck, who is the equipment product manager for the North Face. And he is going to basically go through a ton of the North Face products and basically make sure that you are all set to get outdoors. I don't know if you guys have been checking out the stars lately, but they've been going off. So you definitely want to get out there and check them out. If you haven't yet, still plenty of summer left and warm weather to get out there. So without further ado, I am going to spotlight Tim's screen here. And if you do have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat bar on the side. We'll ask questions as we go, and we'll also have a Q&A session at the end. So want to make sure that you get all your questions answered out here so you are all set to get out there. So again, let's go here. And Tim, the floor is yours.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Tim. Thank you very much for the introduction, Austin. I appreciate it. And I do work with the North Face, if you can tell by the big logo on the hat. I am broadcasting to you from my laundry room / now at home office in Golden, Colorado, where we are working. It's really great to be here, Austin and Sports Basement. Thank you very much for having me. When Austin and I first started talking about this evening, we were talking just about camping and camping in general and different types of camping, and wanted to make sure that we could provide an opportunity, to just talk about camping in general, all the different types. I don't know everyone's familiarity or comfort level, but like Austin mentioned just below, feel free to ask questions as I go along. And I'm going to do my best to share my screen right now. Can everybody see that there? Are you seeing the presenter's view or the one that is only the photo right now?
We're seeing, looks like the presenter's view. It's got
Okay.
the next slides over to the right there.
So. Gotcha. Okay, let's try and adjust that. And apologies, still learning Zoom after all these months. Cool. So here. Perfect. That should work. All right. Does that look a little better?
Yeah,
all
that's
right.
perfect.
Cool. So camping in general, if you're new to it, or even if you've been camping for a long time, there can be some intimidating aspects of it. You're kind of leaving the comfort of your own home. You're going to potentially someplace new, someplace with all kinds of different elements, whether it be wildlife or weather, and you're without the comfort of your bed, your home, whatnot. So we'll talk through this, and then kind of at the end, I've built out a little resources page regarding just camping in general, how to get started car camping or backpacking or alpine camping, if that's something that you're interested in, and then also some local resources in the Northern California area. For those of you who don't know, the North Face, who I've worked with, for about 5 years. We were located in Northern California for a long time, for over 50 years. And just this past year, we relocated out to Colorado. So fortunately, a lot of my early camping experiences throughout my life were in Northern California, not far from where most of you are right now. So if you'd like, we can talk through some of my favorite spots as well, for both car camping, backpacking, and whatnot. And we'll just kind of go through it. But who is the North Face, I guess, is where I'd start. We're a big brand. Probably most places you go, you see one of our logos. We're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, in the outdoor industry. But there's a lot of really great people behind it, just like yourselves. It's a very fun and goofy workforce. A lot of really passionate people about the outdoors. a lot of different expertise all across the board, some really creative and talented people. And all these people recently, most of them moved out from the San Francisco Bay Area to Colorado this past year. So if your housing prices went down a little bit, you're welcome. Tell you what, they're on the rise here. But it's a really fun and crazy group to work with. And I feel very, very lucky. A lot of passionate people. And who am I and why should you listen to me about camping? I am that guy right there. But I recognize that's a slightly distracting photo, so we'll go over to this one here. But like I said, a little bit about me. I grew up in Oakland, California, big A's fan, big Dubs fan, and lived in California most of my life. I've been with the North Face, like I mentioned, 5 years, and my position technically is called Global Category Manager of Technical Equipment. So in short, and don't worry, Austin, I used to be a product manager, and they recently changed all of our titles, so you're good. So my job, in short, is to oversee our technical equipment business, which includes tents, sleeping bags, and outdoors kind of packs, like hiking packs or ski packs. My first backpacking trip was up to Point Reyes, and was also really stoked to see that tonight is in support of Trips for Kids in Marin. I have a lot of very fond memories in that area and miss the Bay Area greatly. But yeah, so kind of why should you listen to me, aside from the fact that I know a lot about product? I've pretty much spent my whole life in the outdoors. I've been very fortunate and very blessed to be playing in the outdoors since I was a little kid. Growing up, my parents used to pick us up from our last day at school and drive out to Yosemite Valley for a week, and have a ton of fond memories there. And after college, I spent 5 years in Tahoe, quite honestly, just kind of ski bumming, trying to figure out what I wanted to do and really playing in the outdoors. And then once I kind of grew tired of the lack of opportunity in the Tahoe area, I went to Minnesota, where I guided at-risk youth canoeing expeditions for a number of years. So 28-day canoeing trips. So spent a lot of time out in the Minnesota woods, and also ran trips in Northern California with the California Outward Bound School as well. So in between some of those seasons, I ski patrolled out in Vermont, but ultimately when it comes down to it, when I'm having fun with my friends and my wife and our dog, we're out camping. So I'm really excited to be here and just talk with you guys about camping and, you know, the way that the North Face builds products into camping. So camping, what's up with it? There's many different types. Car camping is a very enjoyable and very fun and easy entryway into the outdoors and for some peace and solitude. Backpacking is another option, a little more labor intensive or logistic intensive, but also highly rewarding. And then alpine camping or expedition camping, which I'd say of all these is far and away the most miserable and the most dangerous. So I'm lucky enough throughout my life, I've gotten to kind of play in all three of these realms. By all means, if you have any questions as we go through about any particular type or anything like that, I love talking about the outdoors. So just feel free to ping in a question. But let's start with car camping. You know, if you haven't gone camping before, it's probably the best way to get into the camping scene and to dip your toe in, to say. It's a great way to enjoy the outdoors. You know, you can build a base camp for adventure. You can get out and go on day hikes or go out rock climbing if that's something that you're interested in, or ride your bike around Yosemite Valley and always come home to your base camp that's set up. You know, it's a little bit lower commitment because you have everything that you need right there with you. And it's also lower risk because of that, you know, in the case that you need to go home for whatever reason, if someone's not feeling well, your car is right there and the risk is much lower than being in the backcountry. Ultimately, you can bring ice cream. Just kidding. Everything but pretty much the kitchen sink. You know, it's really convenient to car camp. You can bring as much stuff as your car can fit, so long as you and your family can fit inside, and hopefully the dog as well. And because of that, it's also really comfortable, or can be. And I highly recommend making car camping as comfortable as possible. When looking at the gear for camping, it's kind of the same no matter what type of camping you're doing at its base level. You know, you need a tent, a sleeping bag, a sleeping pad. Ensure you have a stove and fuel so you can cook, and water or water filtration. and some food. And then depending on the different types of camping that you do, you can add on different things to bring with you. When I go car camping, I pretty much bring everything except for the kitchen sink, you know, a cooler, chairs, lights. I bring a down pillow from home so I actually get a good night's sleep. Firewood you can bring, you know, and check out some of the local resources of where you're going. Maybe there's places there that sell firewood, or maybe you bring it from home, or you can harvest it from the woods. I always bring a queen size mattress with me, you know, for my wife and I, and then our dog gets her bed. You know, we kind of spoil ourselves, right? Because we can, and try and make it as enjoyable as possible. You know, if you're of age and over 21, you can maybe bring out a bottle of wine or something like that too, to have around the campfire. And, you know, slippers, like the options are endless. You know, you think about, when I am going car camping, can I fit this and will it add value to my life when I'm out camping? And I honestly try and pack the car as full as I possibly can when I'm car camping. It makes for a disaster when you get home on Sunday evenings, but it's well worth it in my opinion. So California, you know, where can you car camp? California state parks are absolutely everywhere. You know, all along the coast are some good ones, especially coming up September, October in Northern California when the fog's not there. You get a lot of beautiful warm days and hikes up into the redwoods and whatnot. And there's a lot of state parks really close to home as well. You can also camp in the national parks. You know, obviously check COVID regulations right now for all the campsites, but the national parks are a great option. And one thing I would caution when camping in a California state or national park is oftentimes they book up pretty quickly. So the resources page at the end will have links to sites like recreation.gov, and those tell you the days that you can actually register for a campsite. So for example, if you're looking to go to Yosemite Valley for the first time, you actually need to be on your computer at like 8 a.m., 7 months to the day before. And it's kind of crazy, you know, it's like a little stressful. It's like you're trying to buy something on an eBay auction, but well worth it once you get it. You know, you can get multiple computers going. But camping doesn't have to be that stressful either, you know, especially in the off season. Finding a campsite can be a lot easier. Bureau of Land Management land is also all over California, but the difference here is that it's unkept. There's no facilities. So that's something to keep in mind. When you go to a California state park, they have pit toilets and a ranger comes by and takes out the trash from the trash cans, which is very nice. With that comes other people around. So it's kind of a give or take, you know. Sometimes, you know, the RV next to you will have a generator on at a state park until 8 or 9 p.m. where Bureau of Land Management land, which you can just find through their website and some of their maps, generally a lot quieter and peaceful. But you also have to pack out everything that you pack in. So something to keep in mind. And then an opportunity we're seeing right now, which I don't know why I didn't think of this before, but, you know, when campsites are full and, you know, you can't really get on flights, you know, depending on your comfort levels, like you can always camp in your own backyard, especially if you're new to camping. You know, it's a great way to spend a night outside and get yourself familiar with a tent and a sleeping bag and, you know, how your kid or dog may do inside of the tent. Sometimes it could be great and better than you surprise, and sometimes the dog is clawing through the wall of the tent. So it's all different, and camping in your own backyard is a great time to learn and a great place to learn. So let's talk a little bit about tents, you know, and what tents the North Face offers for car camping. What you're looking at here are two most popular families of tents, the Stormbreak and the Wawonas. And you can see the number next to you. That's how many people can sleep inside of those tents. And then down below, obviously, the price range for both of those. And most, if not all of these, are available at Sports Basement as well. So if you're like, oh, I actually like that tent, maybe you can swing in, you know, check in with Austin and his crew, and they'll point you in the right direction. Now, a little bit about these. The Stormbreak, obviously, a little bit smaller. An incredible value. You know, it's one of the best-selling tents in North America for a good reason, because it's really durable. You get a lifetime warranty, and it's also simple to use. And I think that's a really good thing with a tent, especially as you're getting into camping. Now over here on the right side, the Wawona family, obviously much bigger. You look at that Wawona 6, it's like the yacht of tents. You know, it's quite large. And also incredible value. You know, that big old vestibule, which is the front area where you can store your stuff, can hold many bikes, coolers. So if you're going to go, say, somewhere like Yosemite Valley and you want to bring your bicycles, you know that you can put them away at night and kind of outside away from, um, you know, really the bears, I guess, are the most dangerous thing. Not that the bear's going to come and take and ride your bike, but what I'm getting at is that they're really comfortable and luxurious and have all kinds of pockets everywhere for, you know, you to store your headlamp and extra hat, and your son or daughter to store theirs. The dog can be on the other side or out in the vestibule. You know, there's plenty of space. Now, if you're looking for something a little livelier or spicier, we have our Homestead series. So these are also really great car camping tents and really spacious and simple, but obviously just a little more wild and fun around the edges. So our goal here was, you know, for somebody that wants something a little less traditional, but still really durable and functional. So starting over on the left, you have a 2-person, then a 3, then a 4, and then you see some kind of different looking things. That blue one there is called the shelter. And that's really great if you're going somewhere that may have bugs, you know, and maybe you have a picnic table, you bring out a little folding table for yourself. You can pop it in there. If the bugs aren't out, you can unzip all those walls so they come up. And then in the case that the bugs come in, you can just zip them down, you know, have your lantern and your food inside and actually be able to hang out and play cards or avoid the rain, whatever it may be. It's kind of a unique silhouette or style of tent for us at the North Face, but you know, especially coming from my time in Minnesota, anything I can do to get away from bugs, I'm going to do it. So, and then on the right, we have what's called the shade. We really wanted to call it the front porch because it is the front porch of a tent. Unfortunately, our legal department squashed that. So, but what it is, it's like this big bugle kind of attachment that goes on any of these homestead tents here and creates just some extra area for shade in a hot day or some dry protection from the rain on a rainy day. So really great to have up and kind of a cool little accessory that you can add on to your tent. So that's kind of the basics for North Face car camping tents. And then some sleeping bags I want to walk you through.
Can you go back to the last slide real quick?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just for these tents, just I know it's easier to see in person. Can you, like, in terms of like the roof height, like what would fit like a maybe a camp chair inside, or could you stand in some of these, or what's if you could just kind of go over that too.
That's a great question. Yeah, so the Wawonas are fully standing height, you know, and I'm just over 6 feet tall and I can stand in them no problem. And then once you get to the Homestead level, both the Homestead Superdome 4, so the one covered in cacti, and the blue shelter right next to it are full standing height as well. Regarding the peak height of the others, they're really comfortable when you're inside the tent, but not standing height. So in the case that you want to sit there and play cards and whatnot, your head's not going to be touching the ceiling. So it's all still really comfortable, but again, not fully standing height. Good question, Austin. Keep them coming. Cool. And then sleeping bags. We've got some cool sleeping bags that not many other people do. And what I think is really cool about them is, you know, you look over here on the left, the Wasatch Family, it's a great value and really affordable price point for such a quality sleeping bag. You know, you can also go, if your budget doesn't quite reach into this range for sleeping bags, there's a lot of great sleeping bag companies out there. Like if you swing by even Walmart or Bass Pro Shops, like Coleman makes a lot of really great affordable sleeping bags. And then there's, of course, a lot of sleeping bags more expensive that we both make, as well as some of our competition. But there's a lot of great product out there. Now, one thing I do want to highlight is you kind of see a lot of different colors going on here in the Dolomite one bags and the one bag. There's that blue layer, there's that orange layer, you know, kind of what's going on there. What we came up with a few years ago, and this came from, you know, as the equipment team, oftentimes people come to us on a Thursday or a Friday at the North Face and say, hey, I'm going camping for the weekend. What sleeping bag should I bring? And we say, well, is it going to be cold? What temperature? Is it going to be raining? Are you backpacking? Are you car camping? There's all these questions. And so we were thinking to ourselves, you know, what if we came up with a sleeping bag that answered all of these questions? And so what we came up with was a 3-in-1 modular sleep system, we've called it. So what you're looking at, I'll just switch to the next page, is different layer configurations for different temperature ranges, which is pretty cool. It's kind of like that one sleeping bag that you buy and you no longer need a 0 or 5 degree, a 20 and a 40. You just have one. Hence the name, the one bag, which I thought actually worked out pretty well. So over there on the left, you can see the blue layer is a synthetic layer of insulation, which means that if you're going to get wet a little bit, it'll actually keep you wet, or geez, that did not come out right. It will keep you warm even if you are a little bit wet. And so the synthetic insulation holds its thermal retention ratings, which is pretty cool. And that goes with all synthetic sleeping bags. They're also a little more affordable in general, which we can talk about a little bit later on. And then the second layer, that orange layer, is actually a down layer. So it uses goose and duck feathers and waterfowl down, which have a lot of great benefits with the sleeping bag. You know, your comforter at home may have them as well. And they're incredibly warm. You know, you get a great loft out of a nice down sleeping bag or a down comforter. But there's also some drawbacks. Oh, sorry, they're also really light too compared to synthetic, and they compress significantly more than synthetic. So say you're going to go backpacking, you don't want to take this huge sleeping bag, a down bag will compress a lot more than a synthetic bag. They also cost a little bit more. And the one thing with down is you don't want to get them wet, because once down gets wet, it kind of clumps together. And then you get all these cold spots within your sleeping bag that quite frankly is uncomfortable and could also be dangerous depending on where you are, you know, if it's really cold. So like I said, down bags are also generally more expensive. We try to take the best of both worlds here though. So you see on the far right, that's a fully synthetic 40-degree bag. And then in the middle is that top down layer and a synthetic bottom for a 20-degree bag. So we kind of call it the quiver killer of sleeping bags. Now going back here, you can see there's obviously some different shapes. Those two in the middle are much more meant for car camping and to feel like your bed at home. You know, they have a fleeced liner around the neck, so you don't have, you know, like zippers or what feels like technical nylon fabrics brushing against your neck. It actually feels a lot like a blanket, which is cool. And then on the right is the double Dolomite one bag, which is great for you and your partner. You know, I personally sleep a lot warmer than my wife. So what we can do is sometimes she'll go under both layers and I'll only be under one of them, which is kind of cool versatility. Then, you know, all of these layers pop off and you can configure them however you want. And then on this, on this down bag or the one bag, this actually snaps off and has little buttons that you can use like a shawl around the campfire at night. So trying to think of a little bit of versatility in your sleeping bag and your equipment. So before I move on, are there any questions? I can also keep rolling and you can pop them into the chat and we can revisit this.
I got one here. How small does the one bag pack down to?
That's a great question. It's highly competitive with other 5-degree or 0-degree bags. So it fits very comfortable at the bottom of your backpack or very easily into the car. Exact literages, I don't have that off the top of my head, but it does have a compression stuff sack. So probably compresses down to about 10 inches across and 8 or 9 inches, 10 inches long and then 8 or 9 inches across. So.
Awesome.
Cool. So let's hop into backpacking. This is probably far and away my favorite type of way to go camping. It brings you solitude a little quicker than car camping. Maybe not quicker, but you know, definitely a little more solitude and peace. You know, there's an infinite number of routes that you can go on, especially in California. It's amazing. All over the world, you know, you can do little out and backs that aren't very committing, or you can do some smaller loops, you know, 1 or 2 nights, or, you know, like the speaker next week, you can do the Appalachian Trail or the Continental Divide Trail and spend 4 months on the trail. It's definitely a bit of a higher commitment, higher risk, but then also higher reward too. You can find yourself in some alpine meadows where there's nobody else around. And the one harder part is that it's a little more logistically involved. So planning your route, planning your food, knowing the area that you're going to, what's the weather going to be like? Is there wildlife that I need to protect my food from, either through a bear bin or a bear hang for your food? Also, is there a car at each end of the trail, or is it a loop, so I'm just coming back to my car? These are some of the things that you need to think about when getting into backpacking. Gear, not quite the same. You're probably not going to bring a cooler or a queen size mattress out backpacking because you're carrying everything that you need with you. And that's also one of the beautiful things about it. Before you're hopping in the car, you can look at all your gear laid out and say, do I have everything that I need for 2 nights in the woods? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably good to go. At the resources at the end of this, I think I had mentioned before, there are some great links that you can click, like from Outside Magazine or Backpacker Magazine and REI, that say, hey, these are like the 10 things that you have to bring backpacking. And they'll also give you a product recommendation list, which are always, great quality products as well. Whoops, that says, where can I car camp? I did not update that slide, so I apologize. Backpacking, you can backpack all over. Some of my favorites, I mentioned my first backpacking trip ever was in Point Reyes. There's a really nice overnight and 2-night loop out there. The Lost Coast is really cool and really unique, and also pretty removed from the San Francisco Bay Area, although not too far away. And for some of the more adventurous and more committing trips, the Eastern Sierra and the Sierra Nevada in general is an absolute playground for backpacking once you're comfortable with the equipment and understanding your routes and the maps and the weather in the area. My best recommendation here would be take gradual steps into backpacking. Maybe start with an overnight and then maybe try 2 nights, and then start to explore new areas and build up. The last thing you want to do is put yourself or your friends in a dangerous situation. Hopping into North Face gear, we have 2 series of backpacking tents. One is the Eco Trail collection. It's a fully recycled tent collection there on the left. And the other is a more performance-based family called the Triarch family. It comes in a 1, 2, and a 3. So the main differences here between these tents and the tents I showed you before is they're a little more minimal and they're a little more expensive, meaning we were able to bring in more performance features. So lighter fabrics. So every step that you take, you're carrying a little bit less weight, which adds up over time. Obviously, different price ranges for different types of budgets, different familiarities. And then down below for sleeping bags, we have our Eco Trail collection as well, which are also fully recycled sleeping bags to kind of marry up to the Eco Trail tent family. It is the first time in the US that repurposed down has been used in bedding. So the supply chain is a lot better on the animals where the source of down comes from. We're actually taking down from old comforters from European hotels, cutting them open, fully sanitizing everything so it's pretty much brand new, and then just stuffing them into sleeping bags, which is pretty cool. The Eco Trail bed sits with that family, but to be totally honest, it's more geared towards car camping. So anything in a rectangular shape like that is going to pack up a lot less and take up way more room in your pack and just be heavier in general. So when you're looking for a backpacking bag, you probably want something that's more of like a mummy shape, like the bags on the far left or the ones on the far right. Now, from the North Face, you can see we have down and synthetic, and then we have the cats and kazoos. The cats are synthetic bags as well, so a little lower price point, but they're also slightly heavier than the kazoos. The kazoos are fully down sleeping bags and actually use a treated down. So we spray it with a water repellency. So in the case that it does get slightly wet, it's not catastrophic to your trip, unless, of course, you wake up and a puddle or a stream is coming into the tent or something like that, which hopefully would not be the case. But these are all incredibly great products. The backpacking, the cats and kazoos are really our premier backpacking sleeping bags, and can be found a lot of different places. Backpacking, contrary to car camping, you need a pack as well. So we kind of make a different range of packs. The Terra family here on the left, and then what we call our legendary Carry family on the right. So the Terra is much more familiar in its feature sets. much handier for newer backpackers as well. So you can see that they have these big lines across them. Those are actually full zippers. So you get to camp and your stove is at the bottom. You know, you can actually fillet that whole zipper open and you have access to your stove right there without having to pull everything out of the top. While the Chimera, Hydra, Banshee, and Griffin, named left to right order, are all different sizes. So kind of more of your day pack over here in the Chimera, and definitely more of your backpacking packs here in the Banshee and the Griffin. These are a little more specific feature sets, higher price points. They're much more geared towards performance, so they're going to be a lot lighter than the Terra series, but then you also pay for that lightness. So it's kind of a trade-off. Both will get you there, just with different pros and cons. But yeah, so this is our range of backpacking backpacks, pretty straightforward. And if there's any questions there, feel free to, again, pop them into the chat. Now, for the most advanced type of camping, we can talk about alpine camping. And I won't spend a ton of time here. Honestly, I don't want to be the reason that anybody's like camping on a glacier and was like, hey, that one dude from the North Face from his laundry room said I could do it. I don't want to do that. So I just want to caution everybody that alpine or expedition camping is highly risky. You know, the numbers of risks come from snowfall, from weather, from rockfall, from route finding. It can be very dangerous and should only be done if you're experienced or have a guide with you, which is also a great way to learn about alpine or expedition camping. High technicality, it can. Sometimes you're walking over tons of snow. Sometimes that snow has crevasses in it. So you got to know the terrain and also the systems and whatnot. So high environmental risk and oftentimes unforgiving conditions. You know, the gear list here is much more technical. Climbing ropes and protection. You know, you walk in through a sports basement and yeah, there's a Wawona, like big family camping tent over here, but then there's ice screws and ice picks and moving pieces of protection and metal that you're supposed to shove inside rocks. So unless you're comfortable with traditional rock climbing, with glacial travel, it's best to start with a guiding company to teach you all of these tips and tricks. So there's all kinds of unique and expensive equipment that goes here, and it's really, really fun, but it's highly committing, you know, on the wallet and then also on energy levels too. So, you know, the North Face perhaps was best known back in the day for alpine climbing and camping. And it's kind of a funny little anecdote. We didn't actually make jackets back in the day. We just had alpine sleeping bags and tents that we had extra fabric for, and somebody said, hey, let's turn that into a down jacket. We have down from the sleeping bags. And so lo and behold, now you have the North Face, who's best known for our down jackets and our rain jackets. You know, it all started with this tent and sleeping bag fabric, which is kind of cool. Another little anecdote here about kind of that transition. Some of you may or may not have heard of our Future Light fabric, which is like a waterproof, breathable, it's a competitor to Gore-Tex. That too actually started in tents. You know, we were out trying to figure out a way to get a tent, actually this tent in particular, to not fill up with condensation when we slept in it. And so we took a waterproof, breathable membrane like a Gore-Tex, but it was proprietary to us, put it on a tent, and it actually worked pretty well. And then we said, hey, maybe we should put this on jackets too. So we ended up putting that on jackets and came up with some really nice rain product to keep you safe in both the rain and any snow and skiing and whatnot. So like I said, we're very well known for these types of products. Again, they're highly performance focused, and that is their job. And we're kind of unapologetic with the price to ensure that we're bringing the best thing that we can to the type of athlete that does these types of activities. So one of our most iconic tents is right there in the middle of the 2-meter dome, which is at the far end of the spectrum, but it's an 8-person expedition tent. You know, the thing weighs 50 pounds and is meant to be set up at Everest Base Camp or on Antarctica and lived in for, you know, potentially up to months at a time. So this is very fun, exciting product to work on, but also stuff that you don't see every day, because when you're hiking up at Sibley or in Marin, you know, nobody needs an alpine pack. So yeah, so that's kind of it for us for our 3 types of camping. One thing that I figured I'd mention is the things that you never want to forget if you're going camping, no matter where you're going. you know, your tent, your sleeping bag, your sleeping pad. Layers, that's something that I didn't list in the gear section earlier, but you got to know what the weather is, and you should bring in some backup layers too. You know, I always bring an extra pair of wool socks with me, so when I get in the tent at night, or in the case that everything goes bonkers and I just end up soaking wet, I know that when I get in the tent at night, I have wool to warm me up. You know, water and water bottles, or a bladder, and filtration systems. There's many different types of filtration. You can use iodine, water pumps, etc., chlorine. Obviously, you want to buy those. You don't just want to go buy chlorine, but, you know, swing in a sports basement and they'll actually have water treatment there. You know, food, headlamp, you always want to remember. That way you're not walking around with your iPhone and letting the battery die with the headlamp. And then, like I mentioned before, you always want to know the weather of where you're going. This here today is Golden, Colorado, so it was a nice cool day here. Still very warm inside my house. And then trail maps. There's all kinds of great GPS systems out there. Avenza maps, Gaia maps, which you can download on your phone. But just keep in mind that your phone can die. So always knowing where you're going and having trusty, reliable trail maps is something that will ensure a safe trip for you, your family, and your friends. Next up is just kind of a list of resources, which I'm happy to share out the best way I can, or if you want to screenshot this, or, you know, I can send it to Austin. Yeah, recreation.gov is great for campsites. Hip Camp's kind of a different one, but great for entry into car camping. You know, people can actually set up campsites at their house, or maybe they have land that they're not using, and you can pay, you know, 15, 20 bucks for the night, and you and your family can camp on a remote corner of somebody's farm or something like that. You know, there's really unique ways to camp that Hip Camp brings to life. Gore-Tex, All Trails, there's all kinds of different blogs out there saying where's like the best place to go camping, best state campgrounds, best backpacking trips. And then REI, Outside Online Backpacker, you know, pretty much Google is your best friend. You can go on and you have unlimited resources to learn about how to get into specific aspects of the outdoors. So yeah, we'll figure out the best way to get this to you, or if you just want to take a screenshot or write some of these down, feel free to.
Yeah, Tim, if you want to, like, maybe just send it to me, I'll include it in the follow-up email to all participants, so they'll have that afterwards.
Awesome. That sounds great, Austin. Thanks. With that, that's kind of it from me. I recognize that was kind of a broad overview of camping, but I have plenty of time if anyone wants to chat or has any questions or any recommendations, or, you know, seeking any advice or anything.
I've one question here for what's to say for the sleeping bags and the backpacks. Are they specifically made for men and women? And does that make a significant difference?
That's a great question. All of our technical packs do have men's and women's sizing, mostly in the torso length as well as the shape of the shoulder straps, so as to fit women, or you know, the other styles are unisex, so they can be adapted by women if they like. But we do make women specific sizing, as well as in sleeping bags. For the most part, a lot of our sleeping bags do have women's sizing. Some do not and are unisex. The main difference in women's sleeping bags is the shape, and they also generally have more fill. So sometimes, and that's a really great question, not just with our brand, but with other brands, you'll look and a women's sleeping bag will be more expensive than the unisex sleeping bags. And that is due to a standard set out by REI about 5 or 6 years ago in the industry, saying, well, there's 3 different temperature ratings for sleeping bag by the scientific test. There's comfort, there's the limit, and then there's the extreme. And unisex sleeping bags are rated at the limit. So 20 degrees is the middle rating, where women's sleeping bags are actually rated at the comfort. So when you take a cat's meow and then a unisex, and then you take a women's cat's meow, despite them being called the same bag, the women's, by the industry standard, have to test warmer or more comfortable. So that is something to keep in mind when you're looking through backpacks, or excuse me, through sleeping bags. And then in our unisex sizing, what we always do is add different lengths of sleeping bags as well. So say a shorter person, no matter who you are, and can choose the short length, which is meant for somebody who's about 5'6", where the regular ones are for somebody about 6 feet tall, and then the long ones are up to 6'6". So different options, as well as different options.
Cool, thank you. I got a question here, just based on your experiences, camping, hiking, backpacking. Could you talk about bears and mountain lions and how to best protect yourself, or what type of equipment would scare them away, how to store food, things like that?
Totally. That's a great question. Mountain lions, I don't have the perfect answer to. Generally speaking, they're animals that live in solitude and like to stay away from people. There's obviously in the news, it makes a big deal if the mountain lions to attack someone, but it's so infrequent that if you're around people and making noise, there's a great chance that you'll probably never see them. Bears, though, in California are very common, specifically in certain areas. So generally, if you're going to be in a state campground or a national campground in bear territory, they'll have big old bear lockers, like these steel boxes that have funky handles that are even hard to get into as humans. And that's because bears are so dexterous with their paws that they can open things like car doors and whatnot. So if you're going to go to one of those state campgrounds or national campgrounds, you should definitely put anything with a scent inside of the bear locker. In the case, and that includes your car too, take everything out of your car and put it in the bear locker. It is very common in Yosemite for bears to open car doors or to peel open a car door rather than just using the handle, because they smell something like a chapstick, it's crazy, or a wrapper. So be hyper attentive and vigilant with that. Now, if you're backpacking, there are different tools out there to help prevent a bear from stealing your food. Now, in California, you don't really need to worry about a bear attack. If you're somewhere like Wyoming, you do, where there's grizzlies. But in California, it's generally black bears, even though they appear brown. And they're rather skittish around people, so you can scare them away. But if you are backpacking, I'd highly recommend bringing a bear canister. It's kind of like a big PVC tube or cylinder that fits into your backpack or fits on the top or the bottom, depending on how you packed your pack. And while that doesn't mean a bear's not going to come maybe walk through your camp at night, it means that your food's at least going to be protected. And that's kind of the main thing when you're backpacking. Sometimes you can stack, your bear canister down in crevices in rocks, or rocks on top. A place where a bear can't bat your bear canister away. But definitely bring a bear canister if the regulations in that area recommend it. There's also another type called an sack, which is like a Kevlar sack, which is pretty cool. And it's moldable, which is nice. So for example, you think about just like a shopping bag. When you put something in it, it starts to take the shape of that. Sacks, while they're a little more expensive than bear canisters, fit in your backpack a lot easier. And then lastly, a lot of places recommend hanging your food away from bears, which is a little more complicated and requires carrying some rope. Depending on how much your food weighs too, it could take a team of people or a little bit of extra equipment to build a pulley system. And there's recommendations, which I'd recommend looking up online, but I want to say it's 10 feet off the ground, 5 feet off a tree, and then 3 or 4 feet below the tree branch. So in short, out in space. Bears are incredible tree climbers. So you don't want to just hang it on the tree, because they'll climb right up it better than you or I can. So.
And then for the bear canisters, at least, for the backpacking packs that you showed us earlier, would those all fit like a 450 and possibly a 500, like the bigger bear canisters in
Yep. So the Terras will, specifically the 65, as well as the Banshee and the Griffin. When you get into some of the smaller literages, like the Terra 55 or 40, as well as the Chimera, is a day pack, and the Hydra is a day pack. So those do not fit them. But
awesome. And then I've got a question here from Michelle. She says, what are some things to look or watch out for when deciding on where to camp? So what are some things I guess you avoid, and what are some things that you look for, um, to make it a better experience?
Yeah, totally. It all depends on your comfort level. There's always kind of a range outside of, you think about the San Francisco metropolitan Bay Area, where within 2 hours, a lot of those campsites could be pretty crowded, which is both a good and a bad thing. You'll have less chance of a bear walking through your campsite, but it'll also be a little bit louder. So it kind of depends on your personal preference, or what is your value system for the weekend or for the trip? Are you in search of solitude? Um, or are you in search of convenience of things like bathrooms? So um, all different campsites, have photos online and descriptions about them that you can kind of run through and say, oh, this feels like a good fit for us. The Google images were beautiful. I'd love to go to that stream or whatever it is. But then if you're backcountry camping, that's when campsite choice becomes a little more important. And the reason I say that is you don't want to set up on a place that's full of rocks, obviously. It won't be good for your tent. It won't be good for your sleeping experience. You want to pick a level campsite so it's easier, much better to lay on something level. Look above you, things like big dead trees or tree branches and hazards like that are things to keep your eyes out for. Are you too close to the stream? So if it rains tonight, is the stream going to come up towards the tent? Yeah, different things like that. There's also, when you're in the backcountry, different regulations about how close you can camp to lakes and to streams and to trails. So generally at the trailhead that you get to, you'll be able to see those regulations. They'll lay them out pretty clearly and say, no camping within 100 feet of streams. And that's really for water quality, and erosion's sake as well. So hopefully that answered your question, Michelle. And if I didn't, feel free to ask another one.
I got a question from Ernest here. Any books that you would recommend for backpacking?
Oh man, not off the top of my head, to be totally honest. For learning how to backpack, some of the best modern resources are online, but Falcon guidebooks and many other types of guidebooks do an incredible job of teaching you about areas. So, and forgive me, Austin, I'm unsure if Sports Basement carries guidebooks.
Yeah, we don't. I think we have maybe have a few at our Presidio store, but
Okay.
we don't have a ton. But so long as people are getting out there, we're happy.
Yeah, totally awesome. Excuse me. REI has a great section of guidebooks as well. And their retail employees are also pretty helpful when pointing you in the right direction to, if you're going to a specific area, what the best book is for that area and what the best map is for that area. Kind of separate, but if you're looking for a book about backpacking, A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson is absolutely hilarious, but it's a novel and a story. So great to bring on the trail with you, but not to tell you how to backpack. In fact, that's the last place I take advice, but it is a really funny book.
And actually, I just want to add in here, I know when I was getting started in backpacking, Wilderness Press has one called Backpacking California that has like little 5-page kind of everything you need to know guides for everything from like a single night to like 3 weeks out in Kings National Forest and Sequoia and stuff. So that's one to check out.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then Peter said also California Camping by Tom Stienstra. I'll put that in the sidebar too. BB asked again, what was the product that you were saying that's like a bear canister, but that's shapeable, like a shopping bag?
It's called an Ursack, URSACK. Like I mentioned, they're a little pricier than bear canisters, but they're really cool. So you can get them local sporting goods stores, outdoor specialty, or Amazon if you like shopping there.
Cool. I've got a question here. Have you ever had any experience camping outside of the United States?
I have, yes. Let's see, I've spent 25 days in the woods in Costa Rica at one point in my life, which was an amazing experience. Very, very wet during the summer. I've done a little bit of camping in northern Spain where I studied abroad, up in Canada, if that counts. I think it counts. Yeah, the vast majority of my experience is in the States, however.
Cool. Are there any more questions out there? We got a TNF expert here on the line here. Just anything you have the question about the products, about any experiences he's had or recommendations or anything. I was actually curious, what was I know there's a few spots in Point Reyes that you can backpack to. Do you remember which campsite it was that you're out there?
I'd have to pull up a map. I don't remember right off the top of my head. Yeah, right as you hit the water, there's a great spot if you continue up the coast, about half a mile or a mile. And great group campsites out there as well. So if you're going out with a larger party, yeah, I don't remember it off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Someone came in and said Coast Camp near the beach or Sky Camp up high. Probably one of those. Yeah.
Yes, both of those are ones that I've stayed at. Great call.
And those places are great too, right? Because they actually have, even though you have to trek in everything, they actually have like pitted toilets there, right? It's like a great kind of intro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's awesome. And the trail out there is very mild and beautiful as well. So.
And close. So it's one of the few things that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah.
Cool. All right. I think people basically got all their questions answered at that point. Thank you so much, Tim, for coming on again.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Austin.
Yeah, definitely. And as Tim mentioned, we have basically all these tents that, and sleeping bags at our sports basement locations. And I will send a follow-up email. It will have all those great resources for selecting your campsite. Come on back next Thursday. We're gonna have Will Acuna Robinson on here to talk about his experiences through hiking throughout the United States. And yeah, we'll hope to see you then. And thanks again, Tim. We'll do this again, hopefully sometime soon, maybe cover something else a little bit more.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Austin. And thank you all very much for tuning in.
Cool. All right, everybody. Have a good night.